Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and this is the baseline Tomb King roster. This is what you'll have access to in the Ravening Hordes book, meaning that all you need is the Ravening Hordes and your core rulebook and you'll be able to play as the Tomb Kings. However, we do know that Arcane Journals are a thing, and the Arcane Journals introduce Armies of Infamy and sometimes even some unique units. So what we're going to do today is talk about the Tomb Kings Armies of Infamy. A very quick note before I continue, keep in mind that certain units can also be considered core when certain restrictions come into play. For example, Tomb Guard and Sepulchre Stalkers can actually be used as core as a 0 out of 1, so you can bring one unit of Tomb Guard as core. Don't you worry, we're going to have a proper faction focus later down the line, but I really wanted to talk about the Armies of Infamy first. So there are two Armies of Infamy for the Tomb Kings, the first one being the Nehekharan Royal Host, and the second one being the Mortuary Cult. Now, that might not sound like there's a lot of information there, but essentially what this does is changes the way that you play the specific faction. When it comes to a Army of Infamy, you'll get new faction-wide special rules, you'll get new units, and also a completely different loadout to your faction. So yes, a Army of Infamy, say for example the Mortuary Cult, will play fairly differently to the standard Tomb Kings. Now, we haven't talked about the standard special rules for the Tomb Kings, don't you worry, there's going to be a rather large faction focus video on this, but it's very much the same as 8th edition, so yes, you still need a Hierophant and so on. So let's look at what makes each of these sub-factions so interesting. Keep in mind that you will still need your Ravening Hordes book and you will need your core rulebook. Alright, let's start off with the Nehekharan Royal Host. I'm even going to put the point restrictions there so you know what is core, what's not, and so on, right? So 50% characters once again, and your characters are as follows: a Tomb King, a Tomb Prince, Mortuary Priest, or a Royal Herald. As you can tell, you've already got less options because this is kind of like a themed thing. You'll be noticing this a lot more as you start to see not only this, but also the Bretonnian one and possible ones in the future, because we know that there's more Arcane Journals on the way for the rest of the core factions. Now we're going to go into core, which is 33%. You can have one unit of Tomb Guard or Tomb Guard Chariots, that's a completely new unit, Skeleton Archers, Skeletal Infantry Cohorts, or Skeletal Cavalry Cohorts. Now this is something very, very unique that we'll talk about a little bit later. When it comes to special, you've got 50%, and these are your Tomb Guard, Skeletal Skirmishers, Skeleton Horse Archers, Ubshati, Necropolis Knights, and Tomb Guard Chariots, alongside Tomb Scorpions and Cimbrian War Sphinxes. What you'd have noticed is that your roster has already changed quite heavily. And then finally for rare, which is on a 25%, yeah, just the Catapult, which is, I mean, it's not too bad. So already things are going to be quite different when it comes to your loadout, how you build up loads of different units, and it's really different because when you're used to writing in certain ways, obviously you're used to certain core rules, and then when it radically changes, it kind of throws you off, but in a really fun way, to be honest. But what it's definitely going to do is scratch that itch for you if you are a big fan of a certain faction. Right now, obviously, only just for Bretonnians and Tomb Kings, but as time progresses, you will be able to try out different loadouts and really experiment with armies, which is going to be cool. I'm a big Skaven fan, for example, which is a bit sad that they're not going to get like core rules, but I would have loved in this in Warhammer Fantasy to have the different major clans, essentially, right? So you're getting this, but obviously with just the core factions. Also, yes, you are actually missing some units from the core faction, which is going to shake up how you play. If you're very used to, say, for example, Bone Giants when this game releases, and you now no longer have access to them, you're going to have to think about other ways to fill that void. So now we have to talk about the special rules, because this faction has its own unique special rules. The first one is Grind Them Down, and this means that when chariots are in range of their general's command range, they'll be able to re-roll the impact hits, so they might be able to get more, but keep in mind that you'll also likely get less. The next is Language of the Priest, which means that you need to have either a Tomb King or a Prince as your army general. For 35 points, you can upgrade them to be a level 1 wizard, which allows them to cast Arise and also makes them the Hierophant. The The next is Lay in Wait, which 0 to 1 units of skeletal skirmishers per 1,000 points may have the Ambusher's special rule for free. I'll be honest with you, it's not that much of an expensive rule, so yeah. It's like 1 point a model, which, like, for skirmishers, you're not really going to bring a whole army. I mean, you could, don't get me wrong, you could do them in a really interesting way, but yeah, I just don't see it, man. Then there's Masterful Ambushers, so 1 unit of Skeletal Horse Archers can take the Chariot Runner's special rule for free, and this is 1 out of every 1,000 points. So if you play a 2,000 point army, 2 of them can do so. And lastly, Steadfast Discipline, which is a unit can volley fire in a turn that it's actually moved, or doing a stand and shoot reaction, which in all honesty is fairly good. This means that you can pretty much get a lot more from your archers, which in all fairness, pretty damn tasty. It's just a bit of a shame that we don't have other characters which are kind of known to be archers, or boost up archers, because it would have been for great theming, but you never know for the future, we might see more named characters as time progresses. So I'm not writing out everything properly, I'm just giving you like cliff notes. It's more so you can see if this is something that might be of interest to you. Already I can think of some pretty fun lists. I've been kind of playing around with stuff, but mostly been playing like the vanilla factions, mostly because, you know, it's what is the standard. These sub-factions will be very cool to see, though, in terms of future battle reports that I want to do, because I can already think of some really, really cool ones. It's just a matter of time. Battle reports will be coming soon, by the way. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the new units exclusive to the Nehekharan Royal Host. The first thing is the Tomb Guard Chariots, which cost 53 points per model. And this is different to the normal chariots, which are 43. Now, yeah, you're getting chariots, you're getting fast, mobile chariots, and you're getting your Tomb Guard. So any special rules that Tomb Guard have, any special weaponry, like for example, their halberds and so on, that's what you're getting there. Tomb Guard themselves are pretty good, and keep in mind that, yeah, I mean, it's a new unit. This is going to be treated in a very similar way to the Storm of Chaos, which is something that I do like about the Arcane Journals. It's a kit bash model though, so keep that in mind. This is not going to be a kit. You basically need to buy Chariot kits and Tomb Guard kits and then just mix and match. Some people might not like that, but at the end of the day, you can use those other skeletons in your armies. You know, you can easily put them with your skirmishers or your standard foot troops, and there you go. Not justifying it, I'm just saying that's literally how it works. It's like Storm of Chaos. I will repeat that once again, just to make sure that you understand that it's very 6th edition-y. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. So cohorts, both foot troops and horsemen, are a motley crew. This is a universal special rule, and it's something that you're going to be seeing in loads of different factions. Like, for example, Orcs, Black Orcs have this. Essentially, you fill 2 ranks, or you can have more if you want to, but the first rank is your melee, and your back rank is your range. I'm not giving you the point values here because this is something that is going to be something that you're going to be exploring with time and seeing it in full example. But yeah, you have to put the melee in front and then you have to put the range behind, which, yeah, mixed units, kind of cool. Obviously, we haven't seen these in a while. We had them in Warhammer Fantasy, but it was very different. Like, for example, when you dealt with Slayers or Black Orcs, you decided the full unit what weapon they had. Here, when you have a motley crew, you have various different weapons, and it's actually fairly interesting. Honestly, I think it's pretty cool. It's something that you're going to have to get used to. Obviously, you're going to have maybe some spearmen up front, or some sword and board, and some archers shooting from the back ranks, if they can volley fire, of course. Yeah, I mean, you could see kind of legionary-style warfare with this. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Mortuary Cult, and this is the second Army of Infamy. We're going to start talking about the army composition once again, so core, rare, special, and all the rest. So for characters, it's 50% once again. It's either a High Priest or a Mortuary Priest. This is for your commander. A single Tomb Priest or Arch Necrotect, that one is new, per 1,000 points. And finally, a standard Necrotect also. So already you can see quite a big difference. There's going to be a lot here. So if we go into core, once again, this is 33%, which is very different to the vanilla faction itself. And for basic core, you've got skeletal warriors, skeletal archers, skeletal skirmishers, skeletal horsemen, skeletal horse archers. Now, there are a few other core bits because this is how it works, that you can take one unit of Tomb Swarm as core, one unit of Upshati can be taken as core, and one unit of Necro Serpents. This is a new unit, which is another kit bash thing. But yeah, that means that you can already start with the constructs very, very early on. When it comes to special, which is 50%, you've got access to Scorpions, Upshati, Venerable Upshati, we'll talk about them a little bit later, it's a technically new unit, Tomb Swarms, Carrions, Stalkers, Necro Serpents, this is where the restriction is a bit less, Chariots, Bone Giants, and Necrosphinx. And here, the Bone Giant and the Necrosphinx is one per unit, so it's one or the other. And now rare here is 33%, where you can bring a Bone Giant, a Necrosphinx, up to 2 Screaming Skull Catapults per 1,000 points, and up to 1 Casket per 1,000 points. Which is pretty good. Honestly, this means that you've got, again, a very, very different army list to what you've already seen from the 2 other factions. Alright, we're going to talk about the special rules now. We've got Authority of the Hierophant, and this is basically just your Lich Priest needs to be your general. So this could be your High Priest or your Mortuary Priest, but those are your generals. Then we've got Harmonious Incantations, which is if your Lich Priest uses Arise and is in command range of other Lich Priests, you will then get extra wounds recovered by 1. So yeah, if you've got like 2 rounds, you'll get 2 wounds back and so on. Next, we've got Sepulchran Animus, and this works in a really interesting way. So before you cast a spell, what you can do is pick a construct, so, you know, like a Tomb Scorpion and stuff, which is in range of the caster, and then you can remove health points from 1 to 3, and use that to also boost up your casting roll. So yeah, you will be damaging your constructs to get a better casting roll. It doesn't negate if you miss a cast or anything though, so this is kind of important. So if you really need that spell out and you want an extra boost, I mean, this works perfectly well. And then there's the Terrors from Below, which essentially is an upgrade to Necro Serpents or Tomb Scorpions by 2 points a model, and when they come off from the whole From Beneath the Sands, they can make a special attack to a unit of infantry or heavy infantry in 8 inches of that area. And yeah, it's with initiative values and so on. I mean, it's not bad. It's basically just like an ambush attack, which is kind of interesting. I'll be going into more details once we go into faction focus videos, but this is just like, yeah, you know, this is the difference between the Mortuary Cult, the Royal Host, and then obviously Vanilla. Alright, let's talk about the new units, and the first one is the Arch Necrotect. So essentially it's just like the Lord version of the Necrotect. Obviously the distinction between Lord and Hero is lost, but it's just better stats all around. It can also increase the initiative value of a unit by a D3, and also increase the regeneration ward save of stuff like the Necrolith Colossus, the Necrosphinx, and the Upshati. I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely there. It's worth the points. It's about, what, 90 points. It's actually not bad for a character. It's obviously going to still have its special rules like Immortal Overseer, Stone Shaper, and so on. So it's very much just a beefed up Necrotect. Alright, so we got Venerable Ushapti now, and essentially, yeah, stronger stats all around. They've got a Ritual Blade, which does a lot of AP damage. They're the melee variant only, so you can't bring the Bowman, which is a bit of a shame. Be nice to have both, I guess. And yeah, no kit. It literally just says here, the same thing with the Necrotect. It's like, oh, just paint them differently or put them on a scenic base. It's it's a bit of a cop-out, to be honest. At least they could have, like, given some ideas towards, you know, kit bashing and so on. But it's like, yeah, just paint them nicer. Or base. And finally, the Necro Serpents, which is, as you can imagine, getting the Necropolis Knights kit and just removing the Rider. 38 points per model, it's not too bad. You can get them in units of 2+. They've got their own, like, rules, well, the standard ones, so Impact Hits, Indomitable, Armored Hide, Regeneration, all the usual stuff. I mean, it's kind of cool, though. So you can just have Serpents by themselves, but that's completely dependent on you if you're going to be playing the Mortuary Cult or not. I don't know, man. I prefer the Riders, but then again, I kind of prefer the Stalkers more than anything else, but it's completely up to the playstyle. Yep, I mean, that's pretty cool. Again, this is kind of the situation that we've seen in 6th edition Storm of Chaos stuff, so it's alright. It's just you're only really going to be using them here, and it depends. Maybe you might be really interested in the Mortuary Cult. I, for one, really enjoy the Royal Host more. I think it's more interesting, but again, different opinions, different styles, right? And finally, what else does this book bring? Well, you get a little bit of lore, very little lore, to be honest. It doesn't really bring the full concept of the Tomb Kings. Then afterwards, you get some magical items that can be used with your vanilla Tomb Kings. So there's a bunch here, some magical standards too, some of them are quite good. And then finally, you've got your named characters, which you've got Cetra the Imperishable, Nekaf the Emissary of Cetra, and finally Prince Apophis, which, yeah, big surprise. I actually had just found my Finecast version of him, fixed him up a little bit, and now he's on his new base. For those wondering, Cetra is on a 100 by 150, and Apophis is obviously on a 25 infantry base. But overall, yeah, the book is kind of good. I do feel like some of these items might be quite good. We'll go into it in a proper faction focus. Named characters are decently priced, like Apophis is 130, Nekaf is, let me see here, 120. Cetra is very expensive. Cetra is 445, but he has a stupid amount of rules. Like, he's got literally 2 pages dedicated to him. So, yeah, items come into play and all that type of stuff. It makes him quite cool. So, yeah, I mean, overall, this is a pretty cool thing. I just wanted to do a little video here so you guys are aware of what is coming with the Armies of Infamy here. And let me know what you guys think in the comments below, as I'm curious to know what you think about this, especially the 2 different factions. And, yeah, have a good day, guys. There's more videos to come. There's going to be a lot. To say I'm tired is an understatement.